Hey, what's up, everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here. It is that time of year, my favorite time, my favorite list to make. I'm going to be talking about my albums of the year for 2024, my top 50 favorite albums that came out this past year. This is going to be a two-part series. So today you're getting the first half of the list, number 50 down to number 26, and then later in the week, most likely on Friday, you will get the top 25. This has been an absolutely great year for metal. This list was very hard to narrow down. So if you see, like, you are looking for one of your favorites and it's not here, it doesn't mean that I don't like it. It's very tough to narrow this down to only 50. It's almost like a fantasy football team just nonstop tinkering with the lineup, tinkering with the top 50 until it's got the albums that I absolutely think I need to talk about. But yeah, there's going to be some big name albums that aren't on this list. Like I said, that doesn't mean that I didn't like them. It just means they didn't quite crack my top 50. So I will say, doing this near the beginning of December, I'm not really including any December releases in this. There are some albums still coming out later this month that I'm looking forward to. I will give a quick shout out to one album that I'm not really including in my list, but it just came out this past weekend, and that is Spear with their debut album, 8 Led to the Beam. It's very hard for me to just listen to an album for a few days, then actually put it into my top 50 for the year. But I wanted to give this one a shout out because it's a great album that I think you should go check out. It features the guy from Horn on guitar and vocals, and then the drummer from Helvetets, and is a two-piece, just playing some really energetic black metal that's really structured around these great riffs and awesome drumming. Like I said, I'm not including it in my actual top 50 because I just haven't listened to it enough times yet. But I wanted to give it a shout out so that you go listen to it. But yeah, we'll see in time. Ask me in another month where it would have fallen on my list. But now, yeah, that's out of the way. December releases, there's still some that are going to come out. But we're going to just get into my actual top 50. As usual, for me, it's mostly black metal, but I tried to limit my black metal picks from this top 50 to only like 20 black metal albums. It's the subgenre that I listen to the most, so I could have easily just done a top 50 black metal, but I'm going to have my top 20 black metal, and then sprinkled in there is some albums from all the other subgenres, so I'm going to have a good mix of death metal, power metal, progressive metal, traditional heavy metal, doom, speed, thrash, symphonic, you name it, there's going to be a little bit in there. So yeah, before I get into my actual list, I do also just want to say cheers to you all for following me along for the course of 2024, and here's onwards and upwards to 2025. Yeah, cheers to you all. And now for everyone watching, you may as well be a pile of leaves because you're about to get blown away. Okay, so here we go. Kicking off my list, I am going with Orden Ogan and their album, The Order of Fear. So this is some German power metal. If you're familiar with the band, not necessarily doing a lot different here on this album than they've done in their past, really stick to their formula, but it's a great formula, so if it's not broken, why fix it? It's full of catchy choruses, it's got great hooks. If you've liked anything by this band in the past, you are sure to like this. If you're unfamiliar with them, go give this album a listen if you're into power metal at all. Up next, going with Hordem Rife and their new album, Den Vred Macht. So this is some Norwegian black metal. The main man behind the band is the ex-drummer of Keep of Callison, and he absolutely kills it here, doing all the songwriting, playing all the instruments, basically does everything except vocals. And this is just got great riffs and excellent drumming. I mean, that's mostly what he's known for, is his excellent drumming. This is just like traditional, old school black metal done right. Not necessarily reinventing the wheel here by any means, but he doesn't need to. This is just solid black metal, a great album. That's what's on my list. Up next, something completely different. Going with Skyle and their album Traverse the Bilak. I might be mispronouncing that band name, so I apologize. This is some progressive post-metal from Scotland. This is a one-man band. This is a concept album all about hiking the long and winding Bilak Road in the Highlands of Scotland. And this music, it's just perfect to drift off to. It's very relaxing and soothing music. The atmosphere just transports you to this realm where you're going to be walking the long and winding road, and you join him on his journey here. This would be for fans of bands like Alcest, Seor, Agalok, but there's no harsh vocals here. The vocals may not be for everyone, but I like it. If you're a fan of Alcest, I'm sure you will get some enjoyment out of this. But yeah, it's just a really well done album, very heavy on the atmosphere, and yeah, that's why I cracked my list. Up next, going with Laceration and their album I Erode. So this is some old school death metal, death thrash from the USA. This one, kind of like what I mentioned about Whoredom Rife, not that it's the same style, but some of the same comments in that this band isn't really trying to reinvent the wheel here. They're just playing a throwback style of music, this time being old school death thrash. But this album is so much fun and it's so head bangable. There's been so many great old school death metal releases this year, but this one really did stand out as one of the better ones in my opinion. So if you're into old school death metal and haven't heard Laceration, change that right now. Go listen to I Erode. Up next, we're going to go with some Doom with Crypt Sermon and their album The Stygian Rose. So this is some epic Doom from the USA. At this point in their career, they have already built quite the discography here. Their previous album, Runes of Fading Light, which I think was from like 2019 or 2020, I should have wrote that down, but a few years ago for sure. That was an absolutely awesome album, really put them on the map. I mean, that was their sophomore album. They had their debut before, but that's the album that really cemented their place as like a current great epic Doom band. And this one really follows in the same footsteps of that album, but this time around they've really injected it with some like traditional heavy metal influences, and I love the approach here, bringing in that epic Doom with those touches of heavy metal, and it just gives it this extra flair that I absolutely love. All in all, a very standout Doom album from 2024. Up next, going with one of my all-time favorite bands, and that is Borknagar with the new album Fowl. So this is some Norwegian progressive black metal, Viking metal, however you want to label them. They're absolute legends, and this just continues their excellent career trajectory. Like, they've just released killer album after killer album for decades. Like I said, one of my all-time favorite bands. Where does this album fall in their overall discography? I don't know as it necessarily hits the highest peaks of like their best works to date, but it definitely holds a solid place in their discography. It's very damn good. The vocal performances from both Vortex and Lars Nedland really shine. That's really what the band is known for over the course of their whole career. Regardless of who's doing the vocals, it's always the focal point of the band. And these songs are well crafted. It's just another great Borknagar album. All right, up next in 45th place, going with Helvetets Port with their new album Warlords. So this is some Swedish traditional heavy metal. This would be for fans of bands like Heavy Load or Gotham City, but then maybe with a more modern flair like a band like Enforcer. It's just very hooky and riffy heavy metal with sing-alongable choruses, and it's just a throwback to the 80s heyday. It's got a retro feel to it, and it sounds like it could have just been plucked from the 80s. It's absolutely killer heavy metal. If anything I said sounds like it might be something you're into, definitely go check out Helvetets Port. I think this is their best album by far to date. Excited to see what they do next. Up next in 44th, I am going with Hamferð and their album Men Goods Hond Ur Sterk. Probably mispronouncing all of that, so I apologize. This is some melodic doom with a little bit of death doom in there as well from the Faroe Islands. All the songs are in the Faroese language as well, which adds some uniqueness to it. This features the vocalist from Jotun, which probably not going to be the last time you hear about that band overall for this list. But yeah, I'll talk about him again later. But this album is really full of these depressive tales about the true story of a whale hunt gone bad, which is a very unique concept for a record, but this is really full of despair and tragedy, and the music conveys this perfectly. It's just a great doom album. Yes, it's depressing, but it's got these gorgeous melodies as well. It's got the low guttural vocals as well as gorgeous clean vocals. Awesome album. All I can say about it. Really good stuff. Up next in 43rd, I am going with Molder and the new album Catastrophic Reconfiguration. So this is some old school death metal from the USA. If you heard a couple albums ago when I was talking about Laceration, you could almost apply all of those same comments here. being that, like, this is not reinventing the wheel. This is not unique by any means, but it's just fun and catchy and goddamn amazing old school death metal. This is like combining elements of death and autopsy and obituary. Throw it in a blender, put your own little modern twist on it, and it's just a gruesome morsel of old school death metal that I just want to gobble up. It's absolutely amazing. I love the vibe and energy on this whole album. A ton of fun, really killer stuff. Molder. Up next, I'm going with Officium Triste and their album Hortus Venenum. So this is some atmospheric death doom from the Netherlands. I would say this band would be for fans of bands like Saturnus or My Dying Bride, but really putting their own spin on it as well. The best words I can use to describe this is beautifully depressing. Yes, it's going to bring you down, but it's also gorgeous at the same time. It's got these beautiful melodies that will make you weep, and like sadness permeates this whole album, but overall it's just really well executed, a solid release. Gonna take another sip of beer here before we keep it going, so cheers, drink along with me, and we're gonna talk about some more albums right away. Fuck yeah, that's some tasty beverage right there. Okay, now we're up to number 41 with Fellwarden and the new album Legend Forged in Defiance. This is some atmospheric black metal with some folky elements from the UK. This is a one-man band. The man behind the band is one of the guys in Fen, but it takes it a little bit of a different approach here. This is way more in an epic direction than what Fen does, where Fen is more like atmospheric black metal with some post-metal elements. This is atmospheric black metal that goes epic and folky, heavy on the epic. It sprinkles in some clean vocals here and there, but mostly it's got the black metal rasps. And this is just an emotional, fantastical journey that, like I said, the key word is epic here. Like, you just will want to take this journey with him. If you're into like fantasy novels, this would be perfect to listen to while you're reading. I just absolutely love this style. I eat it up, and this one really hits the mark with what it's going for. A great album. All right, now we are into the top 40. Kicking off in number 40, I'm going with Bütcher, a new album on Fowl of Tyrant Wing. This is some blackened speed metal from Belgium. Their previous album, 666 Goats Carry My Chariot, from a few years ago, that really made a splash on the scene. And this one kind of picks up where that left off with just in-your-face, aggressive, blackened speed metal. That's on the first half of the album. They do definitely get a little bit more experimental on the back half, where the last half of the album is a little bit of like a mini concept. And they throw in some different styles, some death metal, some like just classic heavy metal, and they really take some chances. Some of them pay off more than others, but overall, I still love the vibe of this album. And this band is just super high energy. Their vocalist is great, whether he's hitting King Diamond-esque falsettos or doing some blackened rasps. Just really hits the mark. A solid goddamn album. Up next, going with Akhlys and the new album House of the Black Geminus. So this is some nightmarish black metal from the USA. It's just really all about the frightening atmosphere. It's very claustrophobic and suffocating. Their last couple albums really blew me away, being The Dreaming Eye is probably my favorite album by them, and then the follow-up Melano was amazing as well. I will say I don't think this one has quite grabbed me the same as those albums right before it, but nonetheless, it is still a very, very good album. I don't want to sound negative because I'm putting this in my top 40. I still obviously think very highly of it. I'm just comparing it to their own masterworks, and maybe it's not quite on the level, but it's a goddamn good album. Definitely go listen to it. Up next in 38th, I'm going with Counting Hours and their album The Wishing Tomb. So this is some melodic doom, death doom, whatever you want to call it, from Finland. Features a couple of the guitarists from Shape of Despair. So as soon as you see that, it's going to get you interested in the band. This would be for fans of bands like Shape of Despair or October Tide, Catatonia, things in that vein. I absolutely love the vocals on this album, whether it's the clean vocals, which really carry the songs, but they do throw in some harsh vocals here and there as well. The songwriting is just really on point. This is a perfect type of album for a dreary, rainy day. It's going to bring you down, but it's really well executed. This is another standout in a great year of doom. All in all, a solid album. Up next in 37th, I'm going with Solbrudd and their album 4. This is some black metal from Denmark. This band has unfortunately disbanded after the release of this album. It did feature Ole from Afski on vocals and guitar. This album may not be for everyone because it is over 90 minutes long. It's very lengthy, a double disc. Each of the 4 members in the band composed 1/4 of this album, so it plays kind of like 4 albums meshed together. It's still cohesive, but you can definitely tell there was different songwriters involved in each of the 4 sections, but I kind of like that approach. It's like you're getting 4 albums to get a different perspective of the band throughout each of these different sections, and it's just really killer stuff. Yes, it drags on maybe a little bit too long, but I like the way that it gives you some different styles and different tastes into their different influences, and just all comes together to make a really solid album. Up next in 36th, I'm going with Kanonenfieber and the new album Die Urkatastrophe. Probably mispronouncing that. This is some German melodic blackened death metal, really all war-themed lyrics and concepts. I mean, if you go check out some live videos on YouTube, you'll see their whole shtick. They have kind of their whole deal going on about war with their costumes and everything. They're very committed to the concept. This band has got a lot of hype since the debut came out a few years ago. Is all of it deserved? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I don't think it's the best project out there, but I do enjoy both of their albums. It's really catchy and well written. Overall, just a very solid blackened death metal. I don't think it's necessarily the best out there in the genre, but once again, I don't want to sound negative. These are things that I'm putting on my list of things that I love. So yes, it is a great album, and you should definitely go listen to it. Up next in 35th, I'm going with Ecclesia, and the new album Ecclesia Militans. So this is some doom with a nice dose of traditional heavy metal from France. Another band that's very committed to their concept when it comes to their costumes. This is all very religious themed about like witch hunts and what have you. But yeah, they go all out. Maybe it could be considered a little bit gimmicky, but musically, it's very infectious and accessible music. Like, it's full of great melodies and these catchy songs that you're going to be singing to. So all in all, whether it's considered a gimmick or not, I consider this album a success. It's stuck in my head even still this much later. It's just a solid doom album. Go listen to Ecclesia if you have not. All right, up next, I'm going with Nahtrunar and their album Hrima. So this is some one-man black metal from Austria. This is a good example of an album that I haven't talked about the entire year, that I only discovered because of someone's comments in one of my other videos. So thank you to all my viewers who give me recommendations, because not everything on this list is things that I discovered on my own. Without doing this channel and getting your comments, I probably would have never discovered this album. So thank you. Cheers to you for that. Give you a nice cheers. But yeah, let's talk about this album as well. What an absolute journey this album is. It is very lengthy. This is another double album. It's got these lengthy black metal tracks that are so epic, and it's got some instrumental interludes in between, and that's mostly for the first disc. On the second disc, it's all ambient, instrumental, black metal. So when I say that, the second disc is kind of just like a companion disc that's thematically connected to the first disc, but you don't necessarily have to listen to the second disc if you want. The beauty of this album and the perfection of it is the first disc, that it's just epic black metal done so well, top-notch stuff. Whether you're into the more ambient side on the second disc will be up to you, so you don't necessarily have to listen to that. But all in all, still listening to both discs, it fits all together so well, and this is a great black metal album. Definitely go listen to Nahtrunar if you haven't. Up next in 33rd, I'm going with Wintersun and their album Time 2. So a band that probably needs no introduction. Symphonic, melodic death metal mixed with a little bit of power metal. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of baggage that comes along with this album. Haters are going to hate on it. That's fine. To put all that stuff aside, I still actually enjoy this album. I don't think it's a masterpiece. It's not nearly on the level of their debut that I hold in very high regard, but I do still like it. A lot of moments on this. The Way of the Fire is an absolutely killer song. Overall, it's solid. Like, yes, there's some issues with it. It's not a perfect album, but I'm happy this finally came out, and I do actually enjoy it. I know a lot of people would not put this on their list for no other reason than it's Wintersun and they're sick of Yari, and I understand that. But just looking at the music, I still think it's a pretty decent album. Up next in 32nd, I'm going with Skeletal Remains and their album Fragments of the Ageless. This is some more old school death metal from the USA. This one is just heavy and crushing. The riffs and vocals and drumming, like front to back bangers on this. This is easily one of my favorite death metal albums of the year. This slaps, as they say. Like, this is just damn good from front to back. There's not a weak moment here. I'm just like playing air drums and soloing and playing along to it and headbanging because I can't help myself. It's just that infectious and that goddamn good. Easily one of the best death metal albums of the whole goddamn year. Up next in 31st, I'm going with Ungfell on the new album De Gort, which I might be mispronouncing. So this is some blackened folk metal from Switzerland. I just absolutely love the frantic style of their songs and the way that they play riffs. This is like in a similar vein to bands like Peste Noire, Sunopfer, Vehemence. There's going to be comparisons there. It brings in the folky touches, bringing in their native Swiss instrumentation, and just great storytelling. Like, this is a concept album, and I just love this style of folky black metal. I can't get enough of it, and this band executes it flawlessly. This is now 4 full lengths that are all close to perfection. Just a great goddamn band that you should definitely be listening to. All right, now we are into the top 30. I am gonna take another chug of beer here. We got 5 more albums to talk about today. I can't even count, but 5 more albums, and then we'll wrap it up. But I'm gonna take a quick sip of beer. All right, cracking the top 30 now. In 30th place, going with some Canadian content. I don't think I've talked about any Canadian bands yet, but we're going to right now with Anciients and their album Beyond the Reach of the Sun. So this is some extreme progressive metal from BC up here in Canada. Comparisons to Opeth will probably be undeniable, but they stand on their own merits here. The guitar work on this album is, simply put, amazing. It's got a great mix of influences throughout this album, whether it's the clean vocals or the harsher death metal vocals. And like I said, the guitar work is really what stands out here. Just truly exceptional stuff to craft an exceptional album. Up next in 29th, I am going with Seidan and their album Visual Kill, The Blossoming of Psychotic Depravity. This is some black metal from the USA, which brings in a lot of different influences. It's got a punky edge to it. It's all like Japanese horror themed, even with their style. It really brings in like a Japanese culture to it. But this is catchy and infectious black metal. It almost has this like romantic, gothic, violent feel to it, but it's hooky and fun while still retaining that raw black metal edge. I'm sure this isn't going to be for everyone, just with the style of the music, that maybe it's too accessible for raw black metal, but I dig it. I dig it a lot. I think it's a ton of fun. Go listen to Seidan. Up next in 28th, I'm going with Frozen Crown and their new album War Hearts. So this is some Italian power metal. It's a female-fronted band. The vocalist, Jade, she has a great voice, very powerful. And this band now features 3 guitarists that absolutely shred. Like, this is easily one of my favorite power metal albums of the year because of the guitar work on here. It's full of catchy, sing-alongable choruses. These songs are going to stick in your head, but their solos line up there with anyone. Like, they can play anything that's thrown at them, and it's just top-notch musicianship. Maybe there could be a little more variation on this album, as almost every single song is a ripper. There's maybe like one mid-paced song here, and the rest are just fast, in your face. But I don't want to complain about a power metal album being too fast, because lots of times I would complain it's not fast enough. But yeah, this is just a great album that absolutely shreds. If you're into good guitar work, go listen to this album. Up next in 27th, I'm going with Necrophobic and their new album In the Twilight Grey. So this is some blackened death metal, melodic blackened death metal from Sweden. This is a super consistent band that has had a very lengthy and solid career and discography, and this one is no exception. I would say this is my favorite album of theirs in their like new era, if you will, since their original vocalist, he was on the first album, then he left. They had a different vocalist for a ton of albums, but the last few albums have had the original vocalist return to the band. This is my favorite of those last like 3 albums. I'm not saying it's my favorite in their whole discography, it's not, but of their last 3, I think it stands out. This is just a solid melodic blackened death metal album, and I think this band should be going down as one of the greats in this very specific subgenre, alongside bands like Dissection, Dawn, Sacramentum. Necrophobic doesn't always get mentioned, but they should, and this album is a perfect example why. Just solid, catchy tunes. You're going to be headbanging. You're going to love it. All right, one more album to close off this first edition. In 26th place, I'm going with Dwarrowdelf and the new album, The Fallen Leaves. This is a one-man band from the UK. This is epic, atmospheric black metal, where on previous albums, it was more focused around like Tolkien lore and maybe was more influenced by a band like Summoning. This time around, he's changed up the style a little bit, bringing in some melodeath influences, writing about some different concepts as well. I hear a lot of like Gallowbraid influence in this album, which if you're into Gallowbraid, definitely go listen to this album by Dwarrowdelf. It's just overall a really enjoyable release of epic atmospheric black metal with some different stylings going on and some different influences, and he just really executes it well. So anyways, those are the first 25 albums of my top 50. Like I said, you will get the top 25 coming up this Friday. As usual, I always like to hear from you. I want to know what your picks are. You don't necessarily have to give me a full list of 50, but you can. I will read all of your comments. So if you feel like it, give me your 50 to 26 right now. Give me your top 25 on Friday, or just give me your top 10 or top 5. Just what are your favorite albums? I like to read about what other people's favorites of the year were as well. Try to guess what's going to be in my top 25. And until then, once again, cheers to you all. And until Friday, Hammerheart Metal Reviews.